Hello, welcome to the Real Estate Regroup Show. I am your host, LJ Walker, a real estate investor, helping you realize your dream of owning a home or investing in one. Today, I'm going to enter into this little argument that I see going around where people are arguing whether or not you should get a single family, a multifamily, or better yet, to a certain extent, an apartment building. Now, of course, if it's your first property, you probably will be leaning towards the first two, a single family or a multi. But when it comes to your second property, you then might also be thinking about getting an apartment building. So let me break down what people are saying. Some feel that you should test the market by buying a one family because what you read in the media and what you research on your own is going to be different from when you're actually there holding the property. They feel that if you don't like the market or the neighborhood that that particular property is in, it'll be easier for you to sell it if it's a one family. Other people say, no, get a multifamily because you make more money and you pay less taxes than if it was an apartment building. And then lastly, you have other people that say, no, go all the way, go hard or go home, get yourself an apartment building because although it may be more expensive to buy and although you pay more taxes, you'll be able to make more money than both the single family and the multifamily. You'll be able to retire earlier or just have additional income coming in once you retire. And both of the people who are for multifamily and apartment building, they feel that one cannot make any money on a one family at all, especially if they're going to occupy it. Well, here's what I feel. I feel that to a certain extent, everybody has a point. However, I also feel that it depends on the market, it depends on your team, and to a certain extent, it depends on your creativity. You see, let's deal with the market first. Some places the population is only attracted to single family homes. They do not want to share yard space or walls with another person or family. They love and cherish privacy. You may not find multifamily or apartment buildings in that market or in that particular area. And if you do, the vacancy rate might be quite high. And you can use certain areas of Texas is like that. I was told San Antonio is primarily a one family town, even though they do have apartment buildings and they do have multifamilies, that the majority of people that live there do not want to live in those type of buildings. Now, the plus for the one family is this. It's lower cost to entry. If you're going to be an investor, you normally don't have to pay the utilities because the tenant you have in there is the one that's going to be paying the utilities. And it's also less taxes that you have to pay. With the one family, you can do a lease option or a lease purchase. And what that is with the lease option and a lease purchase, you get what is known as a tenant buyer. The tenant buyer puts down a down payment and pays you rent, where a certain percentage of that rent goes towards the down payment of the home. Plus, you don't have to do any maintenance because the tenant buyer does that maintenance. If you decide to do owner financing, which you do with the one family, there's also no maintenance. You also get a down payment, And you don't have to pay tax, and you don't have to pay the insurance. Why? Because the buyer, the tenant buyer, has title. When you are owner financing it, you become the bank. In addition to all of that, tenant buyers tend to be better tenants than the tenants that you have in 2 to 4 unit multifamily properties. And also, they tend to be better tenants than those who are in apartment buildings. So that's one of the pluses of a one family. And that's one of those are several ways in which you can make money on a one family. Now let's look at some other ways that you can make money on a one family, even if you decide to live in it as opposed to renting it out or trying to sell it to somebody else. Number one, many of you know about Airbnb. Just check the laws in your county or that town and find out what the rules and regulations are for that. Next, you can do the foreign exchange student program, especially if you live near a college. They're always looking for places, and the student that's coming from another country does not need a whole bedroom by themselves. They just need a whole bed to themselves. They can share it with whatever, if you have another child living with you. And you can go to sparkrental.com and find out what's listed there. If you have a garage with your one family, there are many people who build an apartment on top of their garage. Or you have people who use the storage in the garage in their basement and they rent that out and make more money. There are people with one families who rent out the air space, which is the roof and their backyard. Some people have built sheds in the backyard and rent that out as a guest house. There are people who have used their backyards for special events like weddings. They rent that out. You can also, of course, and I'll talk to you a little bit more in depth in another episode about renting your place out to movies, to photographers, to take pictures. There are certain companies out here also that run fiber optic cable and would like to use your house. They pay you rent. Normally it's about $1,500 a month to do that. You also there are some places now. I have seen babysitting. I'm not sure if all of them are legal. I know that you do need to have a certification for that. You may need to also take first aid and CPR in order to get that started, but I have seen some buildings that do that. And in addition, if you live in the home, you can, and you have a backyard, you can sell the vegetables. You can even sell the trees, if you can. Upstate New York, there's a lot of one-family homes that are on large acres of land, and they actually sell their trees for forestry. So please be mindful of the people who tell you that you can't make any money off of a one family home. That is not true. You can make money off of a one family home. Next, let's look at the multifamily. Multifamilies are buildings that have 2 to 4 units. Anything above 4 units is considered commercial. Anything below is considered residential. These tend to be a little bit more expensive than a one family. However, don't let the price scare you, because a lot of banks, what they do is they look at that extra apartment as income and they add that to the income that you already make so that you can qualify for the mortgage. However, they will not look at that if you plan on, let's say, putting another family member in that particular apartment. Then what they would like to do is take that income that family member makes with your income, add that together, and use that to see if you qualify for the home. that's what you're going to have to look into. Now, what I have seen in my own area here in New York City is many times families sacrifice and they will live together for 3 to 5 years in one unit, and then they will rent out the other units of that multifamily. Once they get enough money, one of the other family members will normally move into that unit, or sometimes they'll make so much that they'll move and buy a home next door or across the street or what have you. I've also seen where many of them will even build another wing onto that home and make that home bigger than it already is. Of course, you have to look at the zoning laws and you have to see what is feasible for you and your family, which path would be best. Now, the next thing, of course, lastly, that we're going to look at is the apartment building. Apartment buildings do tend to be a lot more expensive than one family and multifamily. Yes, they do pay higher taxes. In order to buy an apartment building, normally you have to set up some sort of partnership. And in addition to that, there's some sort of creative financing that's normally involved. Anything, as mentioned before, that's over 5 units is considered commercial, and it's normally considered an apartment building. But in speaking to many people that I know that are both in my RIA and outside of my RIA, my immediate network, who have already purchased apartment buildings, they say that it's best to get 20 units or more in today's day and age. They say the reason is because anything less than 20 units, you're normally just breaking even. And in order to really make an income, in order to have a profit, you really need to have at least 20 units in your property. If you have less, you definitely don't bother with having a property manager. You're going to have to manage that whole property yourself. Always factor in vacancies as well when you're thinking about buying an apartment building. And when you're buying an apartment building, like I said, it's not readily it's not something that something that everybody is interested in living in. It's best if you buy these buildings in transient cities or areas, particularly areas where mostly millennials are going to live, because millennials are mobile. And that's the other thing too. When you speak about market, you're not just speaking about the location, but you're also speaking about the population that lives in that particular market. You have to look at that. Now, besides renting apartments, apartment buildings also, of course, can make money if they have a laundromat, if they have an event space. And there are some apartments now where the landlords are taking extra spaces and turning them into workspaces and renting those out as well. In addition, I will say this. There are some people who have many single-family homes. Here's the difference. If you have 20 single-family homes, it's normally more expensive to own those and manage those than to have one apartment building that has 20 units inside of it. Why? Because when it's 20 units, normally there's only one roof that you're taking care of and only one foundation, a certain limited area of foundations. But when you have 20 separate houses, that's 20 different roofs. That's more maintenance for you. The accountant is going to charge you a lot more money because they have to fill out forms for each individual house. They have to take account for each additional house. That takes more time, and then they will charge you more. It'll be cheaper in the long run to actually own an apartment building in that particular case than it is if you're going to have that many single family, if you were to do the comparison. So again, just wanted to reiterate, the whether you should buy a single, a multi, or an apartment building, the choice really is based on your individual situation. I don't believe that we should just give one answer and say everybody should buy a multi, or everybody should buy an apartment building, or everybody should buy a single family. It really depends on the market that you choose, the population in the market that you choose, and also the team that you're working with. Because if you have a team that is not good, they will rip you off, and it doesn't matter what kind of property you have, you won't be successful. Well, folks, that's all I have for you tonight. Hopefully the information will inspire you to reboot your mind, reset your focus, and make smart financial moves. Remember, each one reach one, teach one. Bye for now. Until next time.